Liam, when you're looking for a reaction from your players, is a game against Cardiff City one of the perfect games to get that reaction?
I think any game. I think obviously the fact it's a derby as well helps. But I think the biggest thing was to see the reaction in training this week, which we've had. It was a really good session on Tuesday. In terms of the basics, the intensity, the competitiveness, the way they went about it was excellent on Tuesday, and obviously then rolling into the weekend, it will definitely be a case of that of sticking to our processes. It's not about doing anything crazily different, but it's making sure that we hit the level we know we're capable of.
What have you learnt about your squad over the last two games?
I think whether it's learn or whether it's kind of revisiting bits that we've spoken about before, I think there were two slightly different games, and of course the lads were hugely disappointed. Everybody after Southampton was on such a high, but the team's the same. It's the same group of players, the same team that hit that level against Southampton. I think it's just how you manage games differently, and I think that's the bit. QPR was the challenge was more tactical, which we didn't get right, which I'm okay with. I know we can work on the tactical side of it, and then obviously the weekend I thought was slightly different in terms of just little bits around the basics, disconnecting, and the mental side of it, which again was just little bits on that. So the bits we've spoken about before, the bits that we have to work out, bits that we have to get better at, and that's the challenge. We want to make sure that we hit the level we're capable of.
But I guess the questions and the challenges the last two games have raised, are they things you're probably already aware of? It was just showed out maybe in more public terms in terms of those two games?
Yeah, a little bit. They're bits that we've spoken about before. And what the group's done is shown before that we can respond. I remember, after Blackburn having a similar conversation, and then obviously we backed it up with a few results. And that's it in this division. The margins are so fine that if you don't get it right or you're not quite at it, you rightly so get punished for it. So we've responded before. I don't want to keep, going on runs like we have, where we, start to build a bit of momentum and then we set ourselves back a couple. And the lads don't. The lads are really hurting at the weekend, and rightly so. So I think it's now a case of, what you have to make sure you do is you learn, you stick together, and you bounce back.
What kind of game are you expecting on Saturday? Are you anticipating having a lot of possession, a lot of the ball?
I think you only have to look at their results. They've, across the course of the season, been similar. I think where they've picked up some results and had some tough times and picked up some results. So again, there's a similar pattern for a lot of sides that are in and around us. So we know, as I always say, we never take a team lightly. We know it'll be a difficult game. And whatever they decide to do, or whatever the game looks like, we have to be prepared. And I think that's the biggest bit mentally, that we can't go out with any expectation to dominate. Because again, I think if you work, like, you're definitely going to have a lot of the ball. You can potentially be surprised. So we have to go out with a clear head and make sure that whatever the game presents, we find a way of controlling it in a manner that we want.
I spoke to two or three people about Cardiff, and they've all made me smile. They said the same thing: set pieces. They're dangerous on set pieces. How do you prepare for that, other than try not to concede free kicks?
Well, yeah, that not give them away is always a good starting point, right? But I also then think after that, making sure you're disciplined, you do your job properly, and give the lads a huge amount of credit to date they have. And at the same point, hopefully people are saying the same things about us. If you look at the goals we've scored, terrific header at the weekend from 90 for set piece. So I think we, the other end of the pitch, we carry as big a threat. So it's making sure that in both boxes that we do our jobs and we're clinical.
Our weekly team news update. Is anyone back into the squad this week?
Nazy's been full training, so we're going to see how he responds to today. So Nazy's close, and the rest, hugely frustrated and disappointed. Twiney's can't seem to shake this little thing in his quad, despite we've scanned it, we've checked it. We have to obviously treat what's presented to us as well. So he's not quite there yet. Which again, like I said, when you see the impact of the first game, it's now been a long period of time that he's been out, which is hugely frustrating for all. But at the same point, we have to make sure that he gets back right. And then JMO was outside doing a little bit this morning just to see how he responds, because he's still carrying a bit of pain, but he's someone that knows his body terrifically well, and he's able to feed back how he feels. So he's struggling for the weekend, but we got Nazy back, it looks like.
I guess the good thing for Scott was that he played regularly for Hull before coming to Ashton Gate. How much of a concern is it that you can't get him out on the pitch at the moment?
Yes, a concern of frustration more than anything, because I know the quality he can bring. So I'm actually seeing him this afternoon for an update to see where he's at. So again, like I said, the culture we live in now, the world, everything gets scanned. So there's that balance of treating the scan as well as treating him. So we have to make sure, like I said, that both are right. That the scan that we have shows that he's definitely close to healed. It's now obviously making sure the other side of it as well, and that how he feels when he steps on there is good as well.
Did I say Benarous back on the pitch training? Obviously Saturday's too soon, but just how's he getting on? It's great to see him back out there.
Yeah, delighted. He obviously had a tough, long period out. So again, I think been really impressed. He's trained with us now for a few weeks. We're going to look to get him involved in a 21s game soon. But yeah, in terms of how he's done in training, he's made a real positive impression. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how he comes back.
Might we see him this season?
Possibly. I'd never want to rule it out. I think the 21s game could be close. So I think obviously, look, with the duration he's been out, you don't want to force it, rush it, and set him back. I think you do have to be careful. So we'll look to, like I said, get him an increased minute in 21s games. Increase his workload with us in training, and then if he responds, as you know, you have to see how he responds to the fixtures before you can then make that call. But hopefully will be.
And only because we're speaking to him today, but Tommy Conway obviously did well in the FA Cup, but hasn't scored a league goal for a while. Cardiff would be a perfect game to get back on the horse, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Any game, right? I think he'll just be desperate to score. And to be fair to him, he's out there doing extra finishing today. We did a lot of work on it on Tuesday as well. So again, I think I think the stage of his career at you can see it's going in little patches where you have good runs, and it's just trying to find that level of consistency.
And finally, I guess the likes of Scott Murray have told you all about Severnside derbies, what it's like to win them, but also what it's like to lose them. What are you expecting on Saturday, a lunchtime kickoff? Lots of tickets are being sold. Should be a great atmosphere. Yeah,
energy, atmosphere. I think that's the biggest bit. I think in terms of, and said it a lot. We have to try and generate that. I think we have to create that with the way we play, by trying to get on the front foot, by trying to be aggressive, by trying to make the game look like we want to. And hopefully the fans can follow and give us the energy that we need as well.
Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate we are looking to the weekend, but just to quickly revisit Sheffield, if you don't mind. Yeah. How much have you kind of looked back at the game plan and how it kind of mapped, how it played out, and have you kind of seen anything that perhaps could have been done a bit differently from that?
No, I think if you actually look at it, like I said, the first 15 minutes was okay. We knew they'd probably come out and get after us a little bit, given they're at home. So we expected to come and press. We expected them to play a 5. We expected a lot of what they did, and we did a lot of work in the time that we had to basically prepare for that. And then the next bit is, if you actually look at the game, the big momentum shifts came from us and not so much on them. Little bits where little errors creep in, little bits that all of a sudden shift the momentum in their favour. Which if you then go second half, the control, a lot of it was in their half, and of course then staying connected and not giving away counter attacks became the game a little bit more second half than looked slightly different. So we didn't execute the plan clearly, and then it's understanding why didn't we do it? Was it tactical reasons? Was it psychological reasons? What was it? And there was a few bits in there, and they're the stuff that we've looked at this week. So
what do you think? Do you think it was a bit of everything, or was there something specifically why it wasn't executed?
Yeah, I think it's slightly different. I think to the QPR, like I said, I thought QPR was more how do we break their block down tactically. At the weekend, I thought there was just too many shifts in momentum where it was off an error. So again, like I said, our first 15 minutes was okay in terms of we had the ball, spun it in behind them, pressed quite well, dealt with their directness. Maybe didn't land on seconds well enough, but in general, that was okay. I think then after that, what then tended to happen, they scored, which heightens emotion. And then for me, it was then a case of rather than sticking to the plan and doing what we're doing to get success, we then followed it up with a few too many mistakes, which was then hard to break that rhythm and that momentum. So, like I said, for me, it was a culmination of bits tactically. Then when you're emotional, you then tend to disconnect a little bit more. So I think emotion's a hugely powerful thing that enables you to do certain things. And I want players that are emotionally invested and care and have aggression and have fight. But at the same point, you have to control it. If you don't, then for example, pressing collectively is a great example where if you're playing off emotion, you might go and chase things when other people aren't ready with you. Hence, you get a disconnect. So I think they're the bits. Is how do you bring it all together? And that, at this level, you have to make sure that psychologically you're in a good place, physically you're in a good place, and tactically you're in a good place as well.
So there's no, I'm not saying that I would expect you to say yes, but there's no feeling of ripping everything up. You in terms of like how you're approaching games. There's enough, even in defeats and below par performances, there's enough to take things forward at the same time.
Well, yeah, I think that's the bit that makes me laugh a little bit, to be fair, because 12 days ago, everything was fine, right? Everybody was happy, everything was great, tactically it was great. You lose 2 games, of course, you don't want to lose, you don't want to perform, but it's the same group of players, the same team, the same And that's why for me, again, I think it's understanding, when the games do look different, when the expectation's different, when the manner of control looks different, how do you then come out on top and how do you then get success? And again, of course, people straight away tend to jump to tactics, but for me, tactics have to be underpinned by your focus and your behaviours that you show with it. So, and the basics of the game. We can talk about tactics, but if your basics aren't at the level, then of course you're going to struggle. So, for me, everything that we're doing, I believe in. I wouldn't change any of the process that we go through, the way that we work. Is ultimately making sure that we become better at, in those moments.
Yeah. How much have you adapted as a coach since you came here in November to kind of where we're at now? I guess there's sort of two parts to this question. How much have you adapted, and how much has the team progressed in the kind of the way you wanted it to?
Yeah, of course. I have to adapt because of what players we have ultimately. I think that's the again. I think you sometimes if you're that stubborn and you're that set, I think it can be at your detriment sometimes. Of course, I have a clear idea of what I want it to look like in my head, and we've got close to that at times this season. But at the same point, I know there's still a lot to come in terms of the group that we've got here, the capacity to learn, to improve, to get better in key moments, and then also in terms of beyond that of then adding the right profile in the summer, which I think is also key as well. So I think it's the two for me. But again, I think like I said, I'm not getting carried away because of two poor performances. I think, like I said, if you look at the 20 before that, there was only 1 out of 20. So, of course, you could probably have told I was not too happy at the weekend. But for me, it's an opportunity to change it. There's a lot of talk around, the team, we've always done it, the club's always done it, this, that, the other. And that's the bit that excites me. I think it's an opportunity to change it. And again, I said it to the players. I think it's an opportunity for them to change it, for them to, to grab it and go, right, this is the direction we're going in. And doing everything in our power to make sure that we stop that happening, so everybody stops saying it.
Rich mentioned about Tommy. Obviously, we'll speak to him in a bit. In terms of him having chance or taking chances, but obviously he needs to have them at the same time. He may or may not agree. I don't know, but he's not getting the same volume perhaps as he has before in terms of quality as well. The second half at Hillsborough, there were, I think it was 9 attempts, but it was only sort of a couple where, they were sort of high quality chances, if you like. How are you going to crack that ultimately?
Yeah, work. It's work. It's also the players stepping up and delivering with quality. I think that we can give them all the information, do all the work on there on the pitch, but ultimately when you step on the pitch, you've got 11 opposition players trying to stop you doing it, and that's the bit I can't give you the feeling, the intensity, the problem solving in game. They're the bits where you have to step up, whether it be the positions that you move into. And they're the bits, if you want to learn that take a little bit of time. But that's the big bit for me. I think, before that, the chances were, again, we'd created chances. We had the last 2, again, different when you look at the opposition setting up. I referenced Arsenal Porto last week, which perception is, you're playing 2 teams that are down there. You should create loads of chances, but not the case. If you see, I watched Stoke QPR, to be fair, and Stoke went off a set piece. So again, I think what you find when you face teams like that, and they tend to sit off, defend the box, it becomes then quite difficult to break down. So that's why I think it's a slightly different game then for Tommy. I think if you look in terms of some of the games where like a West Ham, where there's more space on the back of people and they're slightly more open, and we can regain it and there's more space to work in. It's completely different for him to when we play against a team that it's then about how cute are you with your movement in the box and working in tight areas. So. But again, difficult in terms of there's so much to work on that, like I said, some of it takes time and some's on us and some's on the players to step up as well.
Cal, hopefully coming back in squad, whatnot, is obviously great news. It's in kind of interesting timing because Saturday was perhaps the first game, and I don't know, well, for a long time really, where kind of Rob and Zach didn't have quite uncomfortable afternoons. They've been so consistent, so solid as a partnership. What did you kind of attribute that to on Saturday, and kind of it didn't quite work? Obviously the 2 goals, the identity of the goal scorer sort of shone a focus on them as well. Like, was there anything behind it you thought?
I've been delighted with the 2 of them. I think that's the biggest bit. I think you can tell now. I think that's the bit that the players and we have to fight so hard is to make sure that we stay quite emotionally even. I think, like I said, interviews after Southampton, everybody's sky high. 2 weeks later, everybody's doom and gloom. And again, I think that's the big bit for me of 2 have been great. Of course, frustrated to concede the 2 goals, have to defend better. But again, I think, when you look at previous games before, they've done a terrific job of defending the box. I think it's been a huge strength of ours. Middlesbrough away is one where I think of, the number of times they got into areas, but actually we had bodies around it. So I think it's also been the lads have done great. I think it's, such a relentless period. Just because, all of a sudden we've had one down week doesn't mean that you're not carrying the physical or psychological fatigue from that. I'm not going to make excuses. We have to be better. But again, at the same point, I'm not going to get too down about it. I think they've done terrifically well. So for me, I try to tend to look for the positive things and the good things in people and what we're doing, rather than just focus on everything that's negative.
How was Josh Stokes this week? Saw a few sort of clips of him out on the training ground. How's he I appreciate it's a conversation for another day in terms of his kind of involvement, but like from training perspective, what's he been like?
Trained really well. So he did the technical work with everybody on Monday, and then recovery because of obviously played on Saturday, and he did the session Tuesday, fitted in really well, showed some really good quality. He was really, made a really good first impression, to be fair. So, like I said, he's one that we had a good chat with him. We will try and get him in again in the future when programs allow to keep trying to reintegrate him. But was really, really pleased with him, what he did on Tuesday. So it's a case of, keep chipping away. His obviously goal return in the National League at his age is terrific. Make sure that he has obviously rests in the summer, but I think for people like him, for Seb, I think coming back pre-season, bit between your teeth and in great physical shape is really important to then try and force your way into the team here, or that's ultimately for me the biggest things in the summer.
Last one from me. You mentioned 20 runs for Eamon. I just wondered, Adam Murphy, if there's been sort of any progression in terms of the work he's been doing, and how close we might be seeing him in some capacity for one of the teams. Yeah,
he's still a while away, I think, in terms of the bits. I haven't had a huge number of conversations recently, but I know he's doing a huge amount of work in the gym again. I think he's another one where it's, like I said before, I think, making sure that his target ultimately is, of course, get back in and around, training and being, involved before the end of the season. But the biggest thing is getting right and ready for pre-season for him. So, again, I think, they're bits where, he's still a little way off.
Is that surprising that it's taken this long, or?
Yeah, you'd have to speak to the medical experts on that one, to be fair. I knew prior to him coming in, obviously, that he had the issues in terms of it, and it's one that with him as a footballer and as a character, we like. But again, I think it's sometimes you can have timescales in your head, but you also have to react and present and work off of what comes in front of you. So again, he's working hard, and the staff are working hard with him. So we have to make sure that he keeps pushing.
Cheers, Liam.
Thank you.
Hi, Liam. On Cal, we could see from a video the club made earlier in the week of him training, you could see how demanding he is of himself and his teammates in training. Would you say you've not necessarily missed them, but is it a boost to have his leadership skills back on the pitch rather than just off the pitch? Yeah,
of course. Someone knows his experience, quality, been there, done it. I think the voice he's got, terrific to have him back around it. When you have him, and obviously, J-Mo hopefully back soon. I think, someone else that's got a voice that, you need that in the team. You need leaders. You need people to step up, especially in moments where it's not going well. So, again, having Nazy's back, he trained really well on Tuesday. I know he felt it a little bit yesterday. It was quite a tough session. So, 100% having someone like him back in and around the group is terrific.
Yeah, and it must have been a frustrating period from him being out, and like James said, seeing Zach and Rob performing at such a consistent level. What's his reaction been like to that before he come back fit? So when you just see him about, was he always really, determined to get back to it?
Yeah, his work ethic's been great. I think, in terms of things like in meetings, he's extremely vocal, which, again, having, like I said, when you've had the career he's had so far, being able to pass on bits to the group, and especially some of the younger players is, I think hugely powerful. And, we try to extract it out of them. We try to pull it out. So rather than having all this experience and knowledge, that we pull it out so that he can share it. So he's been excellent around the group. He's a big character, big personality, and again, like I said, the group are delighted to have him back.
Yeah. Ephraim Yuba was loaned out last week. I just wonder what you want him to gain from that experience.
Yeah, I think when you look at F, I think there's development in terms of how it works. Everyone's pathway journey looks different. Again, I think he had a really good stretch training with the first team and getting a few minutes in and around it. But I think in terms of actually you only got to look at Seb. Getting games regularly, I think become equally important. So once that stretch, the travel, especially with a program that we had of Saturday, Tuesday, Saturdays, same again next week. I think sometimes you end up training quite often in a group of 8. or jumping in 21s fixtures. So going out and playing men's football, and the level's good. Conference South's a good level. So again, I think going and putting pressure on yourself to deliver, I think is something that we think is quite important for his development, and it's happened before. Speaking with Brian's obviously hugely experienced and done a terrific job of it previously. I know the close link we have with them, and having the players we've sent there before that have obviously gone on to achieve certain things. I think it's a good challenge and step for him at this moment.
Yeah, and like you say, Tommy obviously went on loan at Bath a while ago as well. What kind of factors go into that decision making, whether to loan young players out or keep them in house for them to develop? Is there? I assume there's a lot of different factors.
Yeah, and conversations. I speak with Brian every day. We sit down every day. I think it's the balance of what does the first team need. Whether it be depth, numbers, options, who's ahead of who, and then ultimately where you send them, what you're hoping to get from it. So it's not just throwing people out for the sake of it. I was actually talking to Brian today about Zach. If you look at Zach's journey, I know one thing Brian had said was around toughening him up, so he sent him to Aki, which is a good place to go, right? So I think there's that. I think that, there's others that haven't been on loan that don't need to. So again, I think they're conversations, and again, I think that's the key to it. Is having real transparent, open conversations, understanding what players need, understanding in their journey are they at, and I think some players are developing and maturing a little bit later now than it was previously. At 17, 18, some are ready to be in and around it. I think with the level and of everything, the level of player, the level of resources, the level of coaching, I think with so much of it now that some players tend to come through a little bit later. So it's also mapping out pathways and having options for those. So I think that's the skill of it. It's identifying and then working off of how players react and where they're at in their journeys and understanding what level can they get to.
Yeah, and you mentioned Seb. You must be delighted to secure kind of his future at the club. And I know it's obviously early days, but what do you see him bringing to the team further down the line?
Yeah, Seb obviously trained with us the other day as well, so it was terrific to meet him. Saw his goal actually, terrific finish the other night, moment of real quality. I think that's it. I think I liked when I sat with him. He was quite clear in what type of player he is and what he needs to get better at. So I think that's always a good starting point. If you've got someone that knows their strengths and areas to improve, I think you can then get into the work straight away. So I think when you look at his honesty, his running, his competitiveness, and his goal return, to be fair, I looked this morning 6 in 22. I think it's for a first proper loan, I think it's a really good return from a goal perspective as well. So he's another one that we'll try and get in between now and the end of the season, fitting it around obviously Newport's schedule. And then again, I think it's similar to Josh Stokes. It's go away program, and try and force your way in pre-season. I think it's such a key opportunity and key moment to, if you do come back and you're marginally fitter than people around you, you get a bit of a head start when it comes to training, but also games. So again, it'd be a similar message when I sit with him.